The 9th afternoon began just like all the others, warm sunlight dripping across the sidewalks. School children spilling out of Richmond Elementary with their usual chaos of laughter, backpacks, and half-finished conversations. But for 7-year-old Lena Ellis, the world had become a narrow tunnel made of fear. Every step she took from the school gate to the corner had become a countdown she already knew by heart. 3 blocks, 2 turns, 1 parked car, and like clockwork, the moment she reached the same stretch of sidewalk she always did, the grey sedan slid into view, slow, patient, and deliberate. Not enough to break laws, just enough to break a child's sense of safety. She didn't have to see the driver clearly to know he was watching her. She didn't have to hear his voice to know it would sound the same as the day before. But she heard it anyway, sliding across the warm afternoon air, like oil on water. "Hi. Lena," he said her name, like he owned it. Like he had the right to speak it. She felt her stomach tighten the moment the syllables reached her. He always smiled when he said it. A slow, curved smile that tried to mimic friendliness, but never reached his eyes. Lena gripped the straps of her backpack until her fingers ached. Her sneakers tapped faster against the sidewalk. But no matter how fast she walked, the car stayed beside her, crawling at her pace as though tethered to her shadow. 9 afternoons. 9. She had counted them the way children count birthdays. Except there was no celebration coming, only dread. At home, when she told her mother, "Mara," she watched tired eyes soften with concern, but cloud quickly with disbelief. An ER nurse who'd worked 2 double shifts that week. Mara had barely slept more than 4 hours in the past 3 days. She listened, she did, but exhaustion had a way of blurring danger into misunderstanding. "Honey, maybe he just drives this way. Maybe you keep noticing the same car." Mara meant well, but Lena heard the doubt beneath every word. At school, the counselor's response was even worse. "Cars drive slowly around schools," she'd said, with a patient smile that felt painfully practiced. "Are you sure you're not confusing different vehicles that look the same?" The police officer who spoke at Safety Week had shrugged when she approached him after the assembly. "It's probably nothing," he told her. "Kids your age mix things up all the time." No one believed her. Not really. Not enough. And children know when adults are pretending to listen. That afternoon, as the grey sedan crawled forward like a predator studying its prey, Lena realized something important. If nothing changed, this would never stop. Patterns don't break themselves. Not when they belong to people who enjoy making others afraid. By the time she reached her street, she was shaking. Her legs hurt. Her throat felt tight. Her small apartment building loomed ahead her safe place. But even safety felt temporary now. She rushed inside, slammed the door behind her, and pressed her back against it, as though bracing against a storm only she could see. That evening, Mara placed microwaved pasta on the table and tried again to reassure her daughter. She tried to be calm. She tried to smile. But fear tugged at Lena from the inside, whispering one truth again and again: tomorrow won't be different. Long after her mother fell asleep on the couch, still wearing scrubs that smelled faintly of antiseptic and exhaustion, Lena lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She listened to every sound outside. Each engine rumble, each passing car, every echo that made the night feel thinner, more fragile. And in that fragile space, a desparatidea took shape. She had overheard something before. Not from teachers, not from police, but from grown-ups who spoke in hushed tones when they thought children weren't listening. They say if the police won't help you, Vale will. Damien Vale doesn't like people hurting kids. He's dangerous. But he's fair. The whispers had come from the laundromat downstairs. From neighbors who spoke Damien Vale's name, the way people speak about storms, fearful, respectful, certain of his power. Lena didn't know exactly who he was, only that he lived in a world the police rarely entered, and that he helped people no one else bothered to protect. The next afternoon, the 9th afternoon, she didn't walk home. She walked toward the city. Her small legs carried her past the familiar corner, past the safer neighborhoods, past storefronts filled with people who didn't notice a child walking alone. She kept going, almost turning back twice, but the thought of the grey sedan circling her school again pushed her forward. 40 minutes later, she reached the tallest building she'd ever seen. Black glass, sharp edges, dark reflections, Vale Holdings. People in expensive suits moved in and out of the revolving doors, never pausing long enough to acknowledge her. The structure felt alive in a way, breathing out power, swallowing in secrets. She sat on the stone steps and pulled out her math homework, pretending she belonged there, pretending she wasn't exhausted, pretending she wasn't afraid. Security guards noticed her. She could feel their eyes. They whispered to each other, speaking into hidden microphones. Something about her presence mattered enough to report. Hours passed. The sun lowered, turning the glass facade gold, then red, then deep blue. Shadows stretched long across the plaza. Lena hugged her backpack, fighting the urge to cry. Maybe she had made a mistake. Maybe the whispers had been wrong. Then a car pulled up to the curb, quiet, sleek, unmistakably expensive. Not grey, not threatening. Black, glossy, heavy in a way that made the street fall silent. The doorman straightened instantly. Security subtly shifted. Pedestrians paused without realizing why. A door opened, and Damien Vale stepped out. Tall, controlled. A man whose mere presence altered the air around him. He wore a charcoal suit that looked like it had been sculpted directly onto him. His expression was unreadable, carved from stillness. He didn't look angry or kind, just powerful in a way Lena had never seen before. His gaze swept the area, sharp and assessing. Then it landed on her. He didn't look away. For a moment, Lena forgot how to breathe. She had imagined this moment so many times. But none of her imaginings came close to the reality of facing a man the city feared and respected in equal measure. She stood up on shaking legs. Her homework papers fluttered across the steps. She took a step toward him, then another. The security team stiffened. But Damien made the smallest gesture, with his hand so subtle she barely saw it, and they froze in place, as if someone had pressed pause on the world around them. She stopped 6 feet from him, close enough to see the faint amber tint in his dark hair under the lobby lights, close enough to feel the weight of his attention, quiet but absolute. Her voice cracked. I need help. Damien's expression didn't soften, but something shifted. A flicker of focus, a sharpening. Tell me, he said. And she did. She told him everything, the grey sedan, the driver who said her name, the 9 afternoons, filled with fear. She told him how everyone dismissed her, how adults shrugged and smiled and said she must be mistaken, how she couldn't sleep anymore, how she didn't know what else to do. He didn't interrupt. He didn't question her memory. He didn't smile the way adults smile when they don't believe children. He listened. Truly listened. By the time her words dissolved into trembling breath, the plaza had grown completely still. Damien's eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger, but in calculation. A man assessing a problem and already constructing the solution in his mind. Then he asked one question. Just one. Is the car there today? She shook her head. I walked a different way. He only follows me when I go home. A quiet moment passed. Heavy. Decisive. Damien gave a single nod. Not a promise. Not a reassurance. But a decision. Tomorrow, he said. You walk home exactly as you always do. Don't change anything. His voice carried no doubt, no hesitation, only command and certainty. Lena felt something she hadn't felt in 9 days. Not safety. Not yet. But hope. For the first time. Someone believed her. Someone powerful. Someone who didn't wait for permission to stop what needed stopping. Damien turned toward his car, gesturing for her to follow. "Let's get you home," he said. "Your mother is worried." And as the black sedan carried her through the city quiet, protected, wrapped in an authority that made every other car shift out of the lane without being asked, Lena realized something. Tomorrow would bring the 10th afternoon. But tomorrow, she wouldn't be facing it alone. The morning after, Lena stood on the steps of Vale Tower. The city felt different. The sun was the same. The sidewalks were the same. Children laughed in the same careless way children do. But beneath all of that, beneath the chatter, beneath the hum of traffic, something unseen had shifted. Because Damien Vale was now aware, and when a man like him becomes aware, the world rearranges itself. Before Lena left for school, she found a note tucked into her jacket pocket. She didn't remember placing it there. She didn't see anyone enter her room. But she recognized the handwriting strong, sharp, steady. "Walk home exactly as usual. Don't look for help. Don't change your pace. I'll handle the rest." No name. No signature. He didn't need one. Lena read it 3 times, then folded it carefully, as if the paper itself carried protection. Mara didn't notice the note. She was too busy stumbling through her morning exhaustion, tying her hair into a messy knot, and gulping coffee that barely touched the bone-deep tiredness living inside her. But she kissed Lena's forehead and whispered the same words she always did. "Be safe, sweetheart." And for the first time in days, Lena believed she might be. She walked her usual route that afternoon, her small feet tracing the same predictable pattern they always did. Her heart thudded unevenly, every step stretching like a long-held breath. And then there it was, the grey sedan. It nosed out from a side street with that same slow, deliberate crawl, as though it had been waiting for her, as though 9 afternoons had trained it to know the exact rhythm of her walk. The driver saw her, and that same smile, thin, wrong, chilling, shifted across his face. He rolled forward just enough to stay beside her. Not close. Not far. Just near enough that she could feel him there. Watching. Waiting. Lena kept her gaze forward. She didn't run. She didn't tremble. She didn't break formation. Because this time, today, she wasn't alone. At first, she didn't see the black sedan. It didn't roar in. It didn't swerve. It simply appeared, like a shadow sliding into its rightful place in the world. It moved from the opposite direction, smooth, commanding, sure of its right to occupy space. Other cars slowed instinctively, giving it room without understanding why. The grey sedan hesitated. A flicker of uncertainty rippled through its movement. And that was when Lena saw him. Damien Vale. He stepped out of the black car with the kind of quiet confidence that didn't need noise to be heard. His presence changed everything, turned the street from an ordinary suburban block into something that felt crafted for a confrontation long overdue. He didn't rush. He didn't posture. He didn't even look angry. He walked toward the grey sedan with the calm precision of a man who has already calculated every possible outcome and knows he wins every version. The driver froze. His hand hovered near the gearshift. But instinct warned him that running now would be worse. Damien reached the hood of the car and placed something on it. A thick envelope. Heavy with weight. Heavy with proof. Its edges were crisp. Its contents unmistakably deliberate. The driver's breath hitched. His fingers shook as he reached out, pulled the envelope into the car, and opened it. Inside were photographs perfectly framed. "Ti m'è stampet," irrefutable. The grey sedan trailing Lena for 9 consecutive days. Her small figure walking with forced normalcy, the driver's face captured from multiple angles. A birthmark on his jaw, exposed in high-definition clarity. Map printouts. License plate logs. Camera stills from angles no ordinary person could access. This wasn't evidence. This was judgment. On the back of the final photo, one sentence was written in the same steady handwriting as the note in Lena's pocket. Your mistake already has witnesses. The words hit the driver like a hammer, disguised as ink. His face drained of color, his mouth opened, then closed again, no sound. No excuse. No plea. He looked at Damien Vale. Damian didn't speak. He didn't make threats. He simply stood there, hands in his pockets. Posture relaxed. Eyes steady, as though he had all the time in the world, and not a shred of doubt that the man before him would break under the weight of what he now held. And break he did. The grey sedan lurched forward fast. Panicked. Sloppy, barely stopping at the stop sign as it fled down the street. No more slow stalking. No more calculated distance. Just escape. Desperation. It didn't look back. Damien didn't watch it go. Instead, he turned to Lena. She stood exactly where she had been, clutching her backpack, her breath shaky but steadying. He gave her a single nod. Not a smile. Not reassurance meant for children. Just acknowledgement. Respect. A silent message. You did your part. I did mine. You're safe now. He returned to his car. And the black sedan followed Lena at a protective distance as she walked the final blocks home. In the days that followed, the neighborhood felt different. There was always a car nearby, not the black sedan, but something unmarked. Something intentionally forgettable. A vehicle that changed each day, but never changed its purpose, to watch over a little girl who had been ignored for too long. Neighbors whispered at their fences, glancing at the unfamiliar cars with confusion and curiosity. Mothers pulled their children closer. Fathers lingered outside longer than usual. The grey sedan never returned. 3 days later, local news quietly reported that a man had been arrested for stalking and attempted child endangerment. The report mentioned a package left anonymously at the district attorney's office. A package so thorough that no further investigation was needed. No one claimed credit. No one needed to. But Lena knew. And so did her mother. Mara Ellis had spent those days trying to make sense of what had happened. Lena's trembling explanations didn't match the world Mara understood. Photographs, an expensive car, a man confronting a stalker without the police. It didn't make sense. And yet her daughter slept peacefully for the first time in weeks. Peace rarely arrives without a cost. Mara needed to know what that cost was. So, on Saturday afternoon, her only day off, she dressed in her best jeans and a sweater whose sleeves weren't frayed from years of hospital work. She braided her hair and took the bus downtown. Val Tower looked even larger up close. Cold. Imposing. Beautiful in a severe way. Security didn't stop her. They didn't ask questions. It's as if someone had already instructed them to let her through. She was escorted upstairs without explanation. When the elevator doors opened, she stepped into an office that looked more like a private view of the world than a workspace. Floor-to-ceiling windows washed the room in soft afternoon light. The city sprawled beneath it, unaware of the forces shaping it from above. Damien Vale stood at the window silent. Still, gazing over Lexington, as though watching patterns only he could see. Mara cleared her throat, though her voice trembled when she finally spoke. Why? She asked. Why did you help my daughter? He turned slightly. His profile cut in clean lines. His expression unreadable, but attentive. She asked me. He said simply. And no one else listened. The answer struck her harder than she expected. He walked away from the window. His movements unhurried. Children don't lie about fear. He continued. Adults convince themselves they do, because it's easier than admitting the world is dangerous. Mara felt heat rise behind her eyes, not anger. Not gratitude. But something tangled between the two. You're not a police officer, she whispered. No, he said. I am not? You didn't want anything in return, he shook his head once. No. But why? She pressed again. Softer now. Vulnerable. He paused as though considering whether to reveal anything more. Then, because there are lines, even men like me refuse to ignore. Something softened inside her. Just a little, just enough to see him not as a threat, but as a man who lived by a code written in shadows, but guided by something unmistakably human. Before she left, Mara met his gaze fully for the first time. There was no charm in his eyes. No flirtation. Just truth. Raw. Unembellished. Unsettlingly sincere. And for reasons she wouldn't admit even to herself. That sincerity shook her, more than any threat could have. She walked out of Vale Tower, with her heartbeat unsteady, and her thoughts scattered. Damien Vale expected nothing from her. No payment. No loyalty. No favors. But something had changed between them, something unspoken. Something dangerous in its own quiet way. Because she now knew what it felt like to be seen by a man the rest of the city feared. And he had chosen to protect her daughter, when no one else would. For a while, life tried its best to pretend nothing had ever happened. The streets looked the same. Richmond Elementary still released a flood of kids at 3 o'clock. Their voices rising in a familiar chorus of arguments and laughter. The crosswalk lights still blinked their patient commands. The sky still shifted through its daily palette of blues and soft evening gold. But for Lena Ellis, everything had changed. She still walked the same route home from school. Her sneakers still scuffed over the cracks in the sidewalk. She still counted the same mailbox posts and the same crooked fence boards. Yet the heavy knot that had lived in her chest for 9 days straight slowly began to loosen. The first week after the confrontation, she walked with cautious steps, braced for the flash of grey paint at her side, for the too familiar, slow roll of a car that stayed just a little too close for just a little too long. But the grey sedan never came back. Instead, every now and then, if she glanced far enough back or forward, she'd catch the glimpse of another car, unremarkable in colour, forgettable in shape, lingering just long enough to reassure her before turning off or disappearing down another street. No one ever spoke to her. No one ever acknowledged her. But she had learned how watching felt. And this watching felt different. The eyes on her now weren't hunting. They were guarding, slowly. Her body began to believe what her mind could barely accept. She was safe. She still remembered the fear. It sat in her, like a shadow. The kind that doesn't go away. Only learns to live in the corner of your memory. But now there was something else beside it. An understanding that safety doesn't always come wrapped in uniforms and official forms and polite smiles. Sometimes, safety arrives in the shape of a man the city whispers about. A man who lives behind glass and steel. A man who doesn't look away. Mara noticed the change in her daughter first. The way Lena slept deeper, without waking from nightmares. The way she laughed just a little louder again. The way she stopped glancing over her shoulder with every small sound. It made Mara's chest ache with relief, and with something more complicated she couldn't quite name. Gratitude. Guilt. Or fear of what her life might have become if a stranger in a charcoal suit hadn't decided that her child's fear mattered. On a crisp Friday afternoon, about 2 weeks after she'd gone to Vale Tower to confront Damien, Mara left the hospital earlier than usual. Her shift had been cut short when another nurse volunteered to stay. For once, she didn't argue. She was too tired to be noble. Instead of heading straight home, she got off the bus one stop early The sidewalk deposited her across from that familiar wall of glass. Vale Tower rose up like a silent verdict, reflecting the sky and hiding everything behind it. She hadn't planned to look at it. She told herself she was just walking past, but her gaze drifted anyway. Drawn to the building the way a magnet finds steel. That's when she saw it. On the corner of the small cafe across the street, a place she'd barely noticed before, sat a single cup of coffee at an empty outdoor table. Steam curled from the lid into the chilly air, coiling upward like a quiet signal. No one sat there. No one reached for it. It just waited. The barista behind the window caught Mara staring and stepped outside with a knowing smile. "That one's already paid for," she said. "For whoever needs it. It's been ordered this way every Friday at 3. No name. Just instructions to have it ready." Mara felt her pulse skip. She asked, even though she already knew the answer, "What's in it, medium roast?" "Cream. No sugar." Exactly how she took it. The realization landed with a soft, undeniable finality. He had noticed. Somewhere between the stacks of folders and the city spread out beneath him. He had noticed how she drank her coffee. The cup felt warm against her palms as she picked it up. The kind of warmth that sinks into fingers sore from work and into a heart sore from worry. She didn't ask any more questions. She didn't need to. She sat down at the small table, facing the tower. Cars passed. People moved along the sidewalk. Life went on around her. Oblivious. She lifted the lid and took a sip. It tasted right. Not fancy. Not special. Just right. It tasted like being seen. She didn't wave at the building. She didn't look up and search for him. She didn't say thank you aloud. Some part of her understood that putting words on this would cheapen it. Make it transactional, and whatever this was, it wasn't about favors and debts. It was about something much quieter. Recognition. Respect. A silent promise I haven't forgotten. She finished the coffee and went home. The warmth lingering long after the last drop. The next Friday. The cup was there again. Same time. Same place. Same recipe. And the Friday after that. And the one after that. Eventually, it stopped feeling like coincidence and started feeling like a ritual, while the weeks turned into months. Lena grew. Not in the obvious ways, though she did get a little taller. A little surer on her feet, but in the invisible ways that matter more. She learned to scan her surroundings without fear. Just calm awareness. She noticed patterns. Not because she was waiting for danger, but because she understood that paying attention was a kind of power. Her walks home became ordinary again, but they never became mindless. She'd catch glimpses of the unmarked cars less often now, though sometimes she'd still feel that faint prickle of being watched. Only this time, she didn't mind. At school, she listened to the teacher talk about community helpers, police officers, firefighters, doctors. She thought about badges and uniforms and official forms. And then she thought about a man whose name never appeared on any classroom poster, whose protection arrived quietly, without ceremony. She didn't mention him. Children know which truths belong in the open and which ones belong in the small, sacred space between their ribs. Her world was safer now, but it was no longer simple. Mara's world shifted too. Sleep came easier. The constant knot of dread eased its grip. There were nights, more and more of them, where she didn't bolt upright to check if the door was locked or if Lena was still breathing in her room. She took extra shifts, not because she was running from fear, but because she was planning for a future again. A better apartment. Maybe a second-hand car. Little things that suddenly felt possible, but no matter how busy her week was, she never missed that Friday coffee. Some weeks she arrived frazzled, half running, worried she'd be too late. The cup always waited patiently for her. steam swirling up, as if it had just been placed there. Other weeks she walked slowly, letting herself savor the anticipation. The small luxury of something that existed for no other reason than the fact that someone, somewhere, had decided she deserved a moment of care. She never saw who placed the order. The staff never said his name. If they knew, they kept the secret with the same care they used to craft the drink. Sometimes, after a long sip, she'd look up at Vale Tower. The glass caught the late afternoon light and fractured it into shifting shapes. Reflections turned the windows into mirrors, making it impossible to see inside clearly. But every now and then, just as the sun dipped low and painted the edges of the building in molten gold, Mara would swear she saw a figure near one of the corner windows. A silhouette. Still, watching. She could never make out his features. She didn't need to. The outline was enough. Straight shoulders, hands in pockets, head tilted just slightly toward the street. Watching them. Not like a man claiming something that wasn't his. Not like a predator circling prey, but like a guardian tracing the boundaries of a promise. He never called her. He never sent a message. He never showed up at her door. He simply remained distant. Constant. Like a star, you don't notice until you really look up. It should have been unsettling, she thought. To know that someone with his power could watch without being seen, could touch their lives without leaving fingerprints. But it wasn't. It felt reassuring, because in a world that so easily turned its back, there was a strange comfort in knowing someone out there refused to look away. Time did what time always does, it moved forward, dragging healing behind it. The story of the stalker became something people mentioned in passing. A cautionary tale, buried in gossip and half-remembered news articles. Neighbors who once peeked nervously through their curtains now greeted each other a little more warmly at the mailbox, united by the shared memory of a danger that had been removed before it could fully bloom. Lena grew into the kind of child who walked with her head high and her eyes open. She didn't forget what happened. She carried it with her as proof that her fear had been real and that her voice had mattered to someone. Years later, she would think of that as the moment she learned that being small didn't mean being powerless, as long as she chose the right person to ask for help. Mara became softer in some ways, and harder in others. Softer with her daughter, harder with anyone who dared to dismiss her. When teachers or officials brushed off concerns with gentle condescension, she found herself standing a little taller, her voice a little steadier. She had looked into the eyes of a man the city feared, and asked him why he helped her child. After that, most other kinds of intimidation lost their impact. And always, on Fridays, there was coffee. She didn't know how long it would continue. She didn't know when, or if, it would stop. But somehow, she understood that even if the cup failed to appear one week, the gesture had never really been about the drink at all. It was about a message written in routine, instead of ink. I remember. I haven't forgotten. You're not invisible. In the quiet of a late evening, when the city hummed low and the night felt particularly fragile, a voice calm, steady, and reflective might tell this story like this. Some protectors don't wear uniforms. Some don't follow laws. Some live in the grey spaces between right and wrong, trading in power instead of paperwork, stepping in where official systems hesitate or refuse. Sometimes, it takes a child's small voice, worn thin from being ignored, to reach someone like that, to pierce the armor, to tug on the part of them that still remembers what it means to be human beneath the reputation. And sometimes, the safest place in the world is not under the watch of a badge or behind a locked door, but in the unseen shadow cast by a man the world fears. A man who listens, a man who acts, a man who expects nothing in return, a ghost who protects. not for profit or praise, but simply because he can, and because once, a little girl stood on his steps, with tears in her eyes, and trusted him when no one else would. And for people like Mara and Lena Ellis, that was enough. Enough to sleep. Enough to walk without fear. Enough to believe, against all odds, that in a city full of dangers and disappointments, there are still dark corners where mercy lives. Quiet, unseen, watching. Before we end tonight's story, I'd love to hear from you. If this tale touched your heart, or if you've ever met someone who protected you when no one else did, share your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice means more than you know. And if you'd like to hear more stories like this, stories of courage, quiet protectors, and unexpected kindness, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Every little bit of support helps this community grow and helps me bring you more stories week after week. Thank you for listening, and until the next story, take care of yourself and those you love.